Yeah, we're talking about won't back down. So I'm sitting here drinking a Coke. At one point in time, there was all kinds of commercials for Coca-Cola that, on a nice hot summer day, there's nothing as refreshing as a good ice cold Coca-Cola, right?
Right.
Only you can pour this on a battery and it will eat through the battery. So I'm sure that this Coke is really healthy for me. And my wife has been really eager to try to make me eat healthier, and Coke is not on my diet, although I'm drinking one right now. So that's it. Now, at one point in time, Coke had a song that says, "If I could buy the world a Coke." How many of y'all have wanted to buy the world a Coke? None of you? Okay. It was a Dr. Pepper, it'd be different? Okay. So, okay. Do what? Dr. Pepper is the best? So y'all are Dr. Pepper fans?
Yeah. All day, every day.
All the days.
2 liters a day.
Mountain Dew is nasty.
So, do you think that this Coke is good for me? Should I be drinking this Coke?
Yes.
No, but it's good. So you can
How many, show of hands, how many say no, I shouldn't be drinking it? How many say yes, I should be drinking it? No's.
No.
Okay. And how many think I should be drinking it? Okay. So,
Maybe one every week.
huh? One every week?
One a week.
Says the guy
Coke
who's
is
down
really
like
bad.
12.
Yeah, but Dr. Pepper is a different thing.
But they got the same amount of sugar in them.
Oh, I
Their health value is about the exact same.
Dr.
So,
William McClatchy might say otherwise.
who?
Not doctor.
Okay. He is an advocate of a Dr. Pepper?
He was like, man, you're healthy. And I was like, well, thank you. I drink a 2 liter of Dr. Pepper a day. Ask Rita Pepper. It's not healthy. It's not about me.
Okay. So,
anyway.
short answer is our culture, and let me say, I'll start an advertisement. Give me a break. Give me a break.
Break me off a piece of that.
There you go. So that was nice participation. All right. Do we want to be more like our culture or more like what this lesson is? Won't back down. What do you think? Or what do we want to try to be more like?
Wait, not your culture.
All right. The choices are: do we want to be like, you got A and B? So do we want another show of hands? A is we want to be more like our culture, and B is we want to be more like God. So all those who think we want to be more like our culture, show of hands.
I mean, truthfully, we want to be like
I'm about to say, there you go.
Okay. So
We don't have to say the church. Try to copy culture.
why do we try to copy culture, Brittany?
Because it makes you look cool.
Very good.
Do what?
I love that. It makes you blend in.
It makes you blend in. It makes you look cool.
Fit in.
Why is that?
Blend in, fit in, same thing.
And I even wrote down a song on here because I like music, but it says, how many of y'all have heard these lyrics? I want to be a billionaire so freaking bad.
I don't think it says that.
It doesn't say freaking. Hey, the radio edited version says freaking. That's right. So,
It sounds right with the radio.
I know. I do know that.
no, I don't think that's appropriate to sing in a church setting.
I'll
So
sing
yeah.
it for y'all.
No, please stop.
They might be teaching this church, so I'm sure you're okay.
Okay, yeah, true. How many of us want to be a billionaire? Okay.
I don't.
I want to be a billionaire in like a different sense, not just.
What'd you say?
Why do you want to be a billionaire in a different sense?
Because you have the amount of knowledge you have, which could mean you're a billionaire in knowledge, or you could have any money. I want it in knowledge. I'd rather be smart rather than have money.
Okay.
Because then I could get more money.
I'm
Just
just happy. No, I'm not smart.
Who do you think's the smartest person you can think of?
Josh.
That's what I'm talking about.
You picked Josh?
Well, that's because if I tell him he's smart, he'll be nice to me.
Huh? Do what? Do what?
Rita Pounders.
You think Rita Pounders is the smartest person you know? Okay.
My mom's pretty smart. I don't like the fact that my mom's right all the time.
I don't know.
All right. So my slides helper will start making the slide show up in a minute.
Bam.
All right. So the first part says, when we choose what feels good over what is good for us, we often don't feel too great about when the moment is past.
Mm-hmm.
So just like this Coke, do y'all think I'm going to feel good and probably when it's time to go to bed tonight? Is this Coke going to be what makes me feel great?
I mean,
Now, if I had a bottle of water, do you think when I'm ready to go to bed tonight that if I drank that bottle of water that I would feel good when it's time to go to bed?
yeah.
Do you think I would? I would have to get up to go pee, but do you think I would? Do you think I would feel better with the bottle of water or with the Coke?
The ones that's more delicious.
The one that's the more delicious.
The one that's more delicious.
So, is this Coke going to make me feel better? Is it going to help my health
Oh, no. What's gonna make it
tomorrow? Huh?
healthier? Gonna make it healthier.
Well, if they made a healthier version, then it may be called water, right? Yeah. Yeah. So, as we're going through this, it says, the next slide that we're going to, it says, our culture wants us to sell a way of life that feels good, but in reality isn't very good at all. So, what does that mean to you guys? So, do you want to have happiness right now, or do you want to have joy long term? And I know in our small group, we've talked about that. And I've asked, is there a difference between joy and happiness?
Yes.
What is it?
Joy.
Tanner's not allowed to answer.
Thank God.
Wait, can you say that again?
What is
Go ahead, Tyler.
I feel like joy and happiness. I feel like joy is just like in a moment type of thing, and then if you're happy, you can be happy for a longer time.
You've been around your cousin way too much. Okay, somebody else.
It's a good
You
answer,
stole my answer.
but it's totally no. I'm just kidding.
You swapped the two words though, yeah.
Wait, is joy for a happier, not a happier, is joy for a longer period of time and happier is just in a moment?
Okay. What is joy?
Remember, joy is something that lasts forever. So, like, God gives you joy.
Okay. And what is
A fruit
happiness?
of God's, the fruit of the Spirit is the fruit of the Spirit.
Joy is one of the fruits of the Spirit, yes.
Good. Well done, Brooke. Well done.
The fruit.
Okay. And what's happiness? If I
Happiness is
go take Tyler's shoes from him,
Dr. Pepper Mug.
is Tyler happy or mad?
Wait. He always
If I took Tyler's shoes from him, is he okay?
He always looks mad even when he's smiling.
But if I go and take Tyler's shoes, is he going to be happy or mad that I took his shoes?
I would. Yeah.
He'd
mad.
be mad.
Can he still have joy?
Yes.
Yes.
How can he still have joy?
You can find joy in the other things.
Huh?
Because I still have socks.
All right, you still have socks. You could be. You could find joy in the fact that you can touch the floor. That's right. So what is that? Why in the world am I going down these crazy paths? So, what are we looking at? The instantaneous gratification. We get what we want right now, or what we get long term. Go to the next slide, Josh. Or wait, the fill in the blank. We've already gone over that fill in the blank. So the question comes to, are you compromising what is good for what feels good? And please don't answer that question out loud. That's a question for you to think about and as you ponder this. Are you compromising what is good for what feels good? How many of y'all like to go take a test?
No.
Okay. So y'all are in school. Is it fun going and taking a test in school?
No.
I don't know. I've been looking over at
Okay.
No.
If you study, maybe. If you don't study,
I don't study. When I study, I fail.
but what's the point of having the test?
There is no point.
To see if you know it, okay? To test your knowledge,
To make me feel horrible.
but if you don't study for that test, what happens?
Pass.
It's a bad day. You fail the test, right? But what if you study for the test?
I failed.
So even Josh kind of added that hey, when I studied for a test, I actually feel better about it. So what's the whole point of having the test? Is it preparing you for that moment in time, or is it preparing for you for a moment down the road?
It's
preparing
preparing
you for that
Well,
moment in
hopefully
time.
it's preparing you for the moment down the road.
No, because how is math going to help me? How is geometry going to help me down the road?
Well, you're living in a whole
Stupid
different
geometry.
day
I
and
was
age than we ever.
Well, you're going to use geometry every day, I promise you.
Yes.
So geometry is shapes and angles, right? So
Yeah.
how many shapes and angles in this room?
A lot.
A lot, right? So somebody had to cut those doors the right shape, right?
There's going to be no
So geometry had to make it fit in there. Okay. Huh? Right.
Take a carpenter's class.
Okay.
I'm gonna be a carpenter.
All right. So the next statement says, when we give into the standards of the culture, we detach from what God has for us. These things don't satisfy us for longer than for a moment and leave us feeling empty. Is that true in anybody's life? Can you have it to where you feel satisfied for a moment, but then the next day, maybe in an hour, maybe in 10 days, you didn't get what you thought you wanted, right?
No, absolutely. Arguments.
Like even food, when you eat food, it satisfies you for half a second and then you can't
Or
eat it.
like when you do that split bit of confidence.
So Tanner, how old are you? So do you remember what you really desperately wanted for Christmas when you were 9? Do you remember what you desperately wanted for Christmas when you were like 9?
Probably like some Legos.
Okay. Did you get it?
Yeah.
Okay. So now you can't even remember what you wanted, right? So
That's good.
what did you have that instantaneous feeling that you were happy that you got those Legos? But you don't have a clue where those Legos are today, right? So how did those Legos help you out in life? Not very much, right? Okay. It kept you entertained for that Christmas day, right? But we're talking a few years down the road, it doesn't matter, right? So what does matter? When we talk about Jesus, when we talk about Christianity, what do we promise? We promise tomorrow? Okay.
We're never actually.
Okay. But what are you promised?
Everlasting life.
What does that mean?
Life with Jesus
Okay.
forever.
Okay. All right. So 1 John 2:16 says, "For everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride in one's possessions is not from the Father, but is from the world." Those three things he pointed out, how long do they last? I mean, I used to be extremely beautiful, but I've gotten older, right? So what happens? Do those looks fade?
Yes.
Okay. So that would be the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, right? Now, I picked on Tanner a second ago about his possessions, which would be he got Legos for Christmas when he was 9, which he doesn't even know where they are today. So how much pride did he have in one's possessions? He may have had pride that day he got them for Christmas, right? So, but that fades, right? But what doesn't fade? And I asked it earlier. Does God go away? Does joy go away? And for for Tyler and Tanner, joy sticks with you. Happiness is an instantaneous emotion. So it's a reaction to where you are. You can be happy, or you can be sad, but you can always have joy. Okay? All right. The only thing in the world, next slide, the only thing the world can offer us is fleshly cravings. They won't satisfy us. What does that mean to be satisfied? Okay. 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 Not wanting. Okay. All right. Now, kind of the main story in this, as we're talking through this, is from the book of Daniel. It's about 4 guys. Daniel, and Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, or as we know them, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So they were faced with a very difficult situation. They were taken as slaves into the king, and they made a decision, or Daniel did. It says Daniel determined that he would not defile himself with the king's food or with the wine he drank. So he asked permission from the chief eunuch not to defile himself. God had granted Daniel kindness and compassion from the chief eunuch. Yet he said to Daniel, "I fear my lord the king, who assigned your food and drink." Okay. What if he sees your face as looking thinner than the other young men your age? You would endanger my life with the king. So Daniel said to the guard whom the chief eunuch had assigned to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, please test your servants for 10 days. Let us be given vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then examine our appearance and the appearance of the young men who are eating the king's food, and deal with your servants based on what you see. He agreed with them about this and tested them for 10 days. At the end of 10 days, he looked better and healthier than all the young men who were eating the king's food. So the guard continued to remove their food and wine, and they were to drink and give vegetables. God gave these 4 young men knowledge and understanding in every kind of literature and wisdom. Daniel also understood visions and dreams of every kind. At the end of the time that the king said to present them, the chief eunuch presented them to Nebuchadnezzar. The king interviewed them, and among all of them, no one was found equal to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So they began to attend the king. In every matter of wisdom and understanding that the king consulted them about, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and the mediums of the entire kingdom. Daniel remained there until the first year of King Cyrus. So, what does that start off with? What did Daniel do? He determined that he would not defile himself. And the king's food and wine was really kind of more of a symbolic of what he was deciding to do. Daniel made a decision, right? So his decision was that he resolved to do these things. So your next fill in the blank is Daniel resolved that he would resist the culture standards and remain faithful to God's standards. Are we faced with decisions on a daily basis? Okay. So what you decide or resolve to do, does that kind of begin to define who you are to your friends and neighbors? Okay. So just like as we're talking about Daniel, this won't back down session, Daniel made this decision. Then what did Daniel do? What was everybody else? And without trying to get down into the deep about, okay, hey, these foods and these drinks, maybe they were dedicated to another god. Daniel had his reasons for his decision. He consulted with God. He resolved that this is what I'm going to do. Did he move? Even though all of his fellow slaves, all of his buddies, and it wasn't like they were, how many of y'all are making a choice that I'm going to eat vegetables and drink water instead of drinking wine and eating a steak? Huh? You always eat vegetables? Well, you're better than I am. But yeah. Huh? You only eat corn. Okay. Do what?
I don't eat anything green.
You don't eat anything green?
Unless it's pickles.
Okay. Now we're going down the right path. Okay. So
It has to be fried.
that's all right.
Oh, no.
Pickles don't have to be fried. You can eat fried pickles with ranch dressing. So yeah. But is it easier or harder to be like, if everybody else is doing this, I'm going to go a different direction? Why is it harder? Okay. So when I asked in the beginning, okay, so some of the questions I asked you guys was why you want to blend in sometimes, right? You want to be like everybody else. You want to, you want to run with the crowd. What was different about Daniel? And they only mentioned 4 people. Now there was hundreds of young men that were slaves. They mentioned 4 people. Why do they mention those 4 people?
Because they didn't have
Okay. They had an important task. Okay. So do you think, did they have the important task in the beginning, or did they have the important task because of that they stood their ground? Why do you say that, Tanner? So we kind of go down this path, right? It starts off, the very first sentence says Daniel resolved. So Daniel chose to this. Now, as we keep going down, what do we see? All right, Daniel made this decision. They were healthier. Their appearance was better than their fellow folks who were eating the fine food and drinking the wine. And then what else did God give them? Wisdom, and what else?
I just remembered that. In every matter of wait, the king interviewed them, and among all of them, no one was equal to. I'm not going to try and pronounce all their names. Yeah, those four. So they began to attend to the king every matter of wisdom and understanding that the king consulted them about. He found them 10 times better than all the entire kingdom. So Daniel remained there until the first year.
So were they just a little bit better? Or how much better were they? Okay. So, and when they're talking about the magicians and the mediums, are these the smart guys? Are these the smart girls? Okay, smart peoples. Okay. I'm sorry. We're in a woke culture, and I'm not very woke today. So, but how did Daniel, and I'm going to, rather than call them by their Babylonian names, I'm going to call them by the names we know them as. How did Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, how did they start down that path? And this is kind of for you guys. I mean, y'all are in this. Y'all are young. Y'all are starting the path. So, and that's kind of as we're going down this lesson. That's the question. Are you striving to be like your culture, or are you striving to be like God? You don't think you could ever be like God?
Because there's always going to be some mistake that you make that you can go 20 steps forward and go back. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, for those of us who are more mature and have been around, are you going to we still make mistakes every day, right? But how do we start going the direction that we want to see go? Okay. Okay. So like you guys are up here, and this is something I guess that really this group is focused on, is small groups, building relationships, building a community. But what if you never came?
I mean, even if you never come, I feel like even if you don't come a lot, you can still be welcome. So in a sense, still be the same as us. You just wouldn't be as.
All right, let's go back to the first two words we talked about: happiness and joy. Right? What's happiness? Is it a long-term thing or short-term thing? What's joy? So kind of the example you're giving, would the people still have joy? Yes or no?
No, they would be happy because they don't come as much, so they wouldn't be full.
Okay. So can you get more and more joy?
Huh?
Can joy grow?
My English teacher.
Well, it's okay. So, the happiness. Okay, if I come and take away your prized possession, like if I took Tanner's Legos from him, when he was 9, not today, because he doesn't know where they are today. So I can't take them away from him today. But if I took them away from him when he was 9, would he have a moment where he was mad at me? Okay. He'd be bawling. He'd be sad. Okay. So he would lose his happiness, right? But if Tanner and I knew each other since we were 9, and our relationship grew, can our joy in our relationship grow?
Yes.
Okay. How so?
He can forget about it.
He can forget about it. But if I take his toys away from him again, like today it may be something different. But if I took it away from him, is that going to impact his happiness or joy?
It's going to impact his
It's going to impact his joy, maybe.
A little bit.
His happiness, because
Huh?
he would. I mean, it depends on what type of person it is. You can focus on the good things rather than just the small. He's going to grow up the small thing that you took away.
So I mess with Tanner basically every week about his hair, right? Can't no more, right? So now I can't mess with his happiness because I can't mess with his hair, right? That's true. I could, Tyler. Huh? All right, so let's keep going down the lesson. All right, it says, when Daniel invited the Babylonian leaders to test them at the end of the 10 days, God's way of living was clearly superior to their culture. The boys found favor in the sight of the king. Okay? I'm going to keep going because that one you may not have a position on. It says, our own culture is no different. The world sets us a lifestyle that seems harmless on the surface, but is in direct defiance with God's standards for his children. Does God have very clear standards?
Not really.
Yes.
Okay. I think he's got pretty clear standards. Is it easy or hard to live to those standards?
Or
Okay. Are you going to make mistakes?
Yes. We may think it's hard, but in reality,
Huh?
we may think it's hard, but in reality,
okay.
like small
But when
steps.
you start
Okay.
doing it, the devil starts throwing stuff at you.
How
That
so?
makes it harder. Like if you're living for the Lord, he's going to do everything in his will to stop you. And he's like, bad things are going to happen, and then you're going to stop doing what you're doing, and then it's going to get easier, but then you're going to go back and he's going to try to make it hard for you. Because he knows you're living right and he doesn't want you.
Okay. So with what? Yeah, I think you're heading kind of down the right path. If does the devil back off when you start living to the culture, to the world?
No, he'll still push you.
You don't think so?
I think that's,
But she says it gets easier at some point in time, right?
I mean,
And then it gets harder again.
yeah, cause I mean, he may.
So when do you notice it gets
No,
easier?
no, I'm
The culture, right?
Okay.
Living how you want to live is fun and easy, right?
or when, yeah, when that's not gonna attack.
You're already doing what he wants, so he's good with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She said.
Right. So your next fill in the blank. It says God's way is always better than what the culture could ever provide. So I'm going to kind of pick on Josh and Brittany for a second.
Go ahead, everybody else does.
Well,
Because I wanted to say.
I usually pick on Josh constantly, but Brittany, I usually don't.
Saying, like,
Bring
the
it on.
world, like, you get attacked. You can even get attacked by other Christians too.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. Like, and we're doing what God's called us to, but yet you're saying like we're not, or you're making statements, and you're just like, well, I'll just go back to the world standards, or just go back to being a probation officer or something like that. Where you don't have to deal with it, but yet it doesn't get any easier because it's not what you're calling you. So there's so many layers to that too. But, okay, sorry,
Anyway, so
I had to say that there.
was it, when you've got two little girls at home, was it easier to say, you know what, we've got a steady paycheck to maybe pay for us to live, or are we going to step out in faith and go where we think God's calling us? What was easier? And shut up, Josh,
I
Brittany.
didn't say anything.
Hey,
That was another girl. I
that
got
was
that girl.
no, that was a preemptive. I want Brittany to answer the question.
Oh!
I mean, I think it would be easier to say where the money is, but saying that, we've done that like 3 or 4 times, stepped out in faith, exactly what God's called us to do. In that first few weeks, it's kind of rocky. We're like, okay, is this really where he's called us? And then afterwards, after those first few weeks, it's like, there's no doubt that this is where he's called us to be. Even though we didn't want, you try everything, every other door first, and then you end up where he's called you to be, and it's the perfect fit.
Okay. All right. So the next fill in the blank, it says, culture will try to lower your standards. What does that mean? So just like I picked on Josh and Brittany for a second there. Is that what culture tells us to do? What was the song I said in the beginning? I want to be a billionaire.
So bad.
Okay. So is that culture talking to us?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It makes you want something that can lead to more problems.
More money, more problems.
Does
Money
that
doesn't solve happiness.
does that
Money
possess?
doesn't give
But it sure does help.
you happiness. It sure does. Money doesn't buy happiness. That's what I'm trying to say.
Dr. Pepper.
Well, I would love to have Dr.
Dr. Pepper.
Of course.
is
It buys you a Bible.
Huh?
So it buys you a Bible.
No.
But I think
Can buy you a boat or a truck to pull it. Yeah.
And pickles.
leave the pickles
Yeah.
alone.
And pickles.
Culture
And
is
pickles.
marketing. Culture is sorry. You're in the dating world. You know, you want a boyfriend, you want a girlfriend. But do you look at that boyfriend to be the most Christian one? Or sometimes culture is
If I was your boyfriend, I'd never let you go.
I wish, but my boyfriend just broke up with me last
That,
night.
you have lowered your standards.
I broke up with mine. It's okay. No. It is funny now.
Culture kind of tries to tell you to make these like horrible decisions, and then you're like, it kind of lowers your standards. Standards in a way, because it's constantly telling you what to do, even though it's not the right thing. I don't know if I can say that.
Kinda. Yeah.
But like culture constantly tells you like smoking is okay, or like starving yourself as a good example is okay because you see all these people around you doing it, and so it lowers your standards to the point where you want to do that just so you can look like everyone else or be like everyone. It makes you, and it kind of makes you feel higher about yourself. I don't know. It makes you feel higher about yourself because
She says thinks Josh starves himself.
No, she said, I don't think Josh starves himself.
Okay.
it makes you kind
Anybody
of think,
starves themselves?
if I do that, people will like me. If I do that, then I'll finally fit in. It constantly tells you things not to do, and when you do them, it hurts you more than it gives you, because it gives you happiness. Temporarily. Temporarily. No, but it's like trying to get a good, like this.
Okay. All right. The last verse we're going to talk about is from 2 Corinthians. Who wrote Corinthians, or 2 Corinthians more specifically? Do y'all remember? He was walking down the road. He used to be called one name, and then he was walking down the road. He got who? Paul. And he used to be who?
Are you sure?
Is that your final answer? Right.
He
Yeah.
sure was like, Saul. He said, Paul.
Huh?
Jedediah.
Paul. And he used to be Saul. Yes.
Yeah.
And so, if we're talking about the book Corinthians, who is he writing Corinthians to? The church at Corinth. Very good. There you go. All right. Gold star for the night. All right. So 2 Corinthians 7:1 says, "And so then, dear friends, since we have these promises, let us cleanse ourselves from every impurity of the flesh and spirit, bringing holiness to completion in the fear of God." We're talking about Corinthians. What precedes that at the end of verse 6, is we're talking about our body as a temple. Okay? So what does that mean to you? What does it mean that your body is a temple?
You should treat it like people treat a temple.
Okay.
Okay, okay.
So how many temples do we have today? Whoop.
Not that
Hold
many.
on.
Okay.
I mean, that's a big
13. 15. Is it 15 for real? 1, 2, 3, 4. You messed my counting up.
there's
Shut up.
10
I'm
you.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Four adults.
6, 7, 8, 9,
14,
10, 11,
14.
12, 13, 14.
Okay, we're keeping
We were both close.
14.
We were both close.
So but what is it? What does it mean to treat your body like a temple?
It means look at this physique.
It means like, well, it means like you shouldn't hurt. You shouldn't
See,
hurt your
like
body.
who? Well, say it so we can hear you.
Treat it like it's God.
We
Okay.
can hear the chipmunk.
Don't constantly hurt it and break it down, because
Okay.
then your temple won't stand, and then you'll be broken forever. You'll be crumbled. We don't want that.
So here's a harder question for you. We talk about the church, right? So is the church a building, or what is the church?
The church is the temple of God's home.
Huh?
Temple of God.
You can't answer that? Why can't you answer that? Okay.
It can be your home. It can be God. It can be God's home.
Why, Tanner, do you say it can be what you want it to be?
Because you can meet in a church without making a mean of it. You just meet or you actually find the Lord in it.
Okay. But your church can be anything, right?
Church
I
is
felt as a pastor.
Huh?
Said I felt
But where
as a
is
pastor.
God though? If you're not following him,
I've
where
always
is
said
he?
multiple times.
Where is God
Yeah, I
in the
know.
Spirit whenever you follow him? Where is he?
Everywhere.
In us.
In
In
us.
the smallest thing. So we
God
will be
appears
the
on my
church.
tweet. We are the church.
There
We
you
are the
go.
church.
There you go. You're the
There you
church.
go.
There you go. So is there anything special about the building we're sitting in?
No,
not
it
really,
can
no.
be just a building.
It can be just a building, right?
It's a
So when we walk out here, it's just a building, right?
Yeah.
So what makes it a church is when we're here, right?
Us.
Okay. All right. Next one says, because the Holy Spirit lives inside of us as believers, it is our duty to cleanse ourselves from anything that could defile us.
That's good.
What does that mean? See it? Okay. Okay, so I'll go to the next one and see if that helps you a little bit. It says, because, well, you're not there yet.
Oh,
So,
sorry. Wait.
when we refuse to compromise with the things of this world that could defile our relationships with God, we are stronger, better, and more pleasing to God.
Yes.
So, how in the world does compromise relate to avoiding anything that could defile us? What does it mean if I'm willing to compromise?
I don't know. You're willing to go
Meet
a
in the
certain
middle.
way. At a certain. Yeah.
Meet
Okay.
in the middle.
That means you don't want to hold up to your standards. You
You're
want to
just giving
compromise
in.
the standards that you were living up to.
Right. So I'll keep going down these statements until we get to some that it kind of starts to make sense to you guys. It says, a refusal to live like the culture means we can live in the holiness God has called each of us to.
Fill in your blanks.
So this is a fill in the blank. So the blank is holiness, okay? The next one says, what things in my life are defiling my relationship with God?
Yeah.
Well, I have to.
Okay. And the last one says, if there's anything in the way of your relationship with God, don't let it defile you any longer. Let the Lord cleanse you and call you to a higher standard. So kind of the main verse that we talked about was in Daniel, right? Daniel made a decision. Did Daniel compromise his beliefs? Did he compromise, say, hey, it's not a big deal. It's a nice, healthy steak.
I still
Okay. Okay. So would it have been easy for Daniel to compromise his position? They're sitting there putting out water and vegetables. Some of us don't even eat green stuff. Would it have been easy for Daniel to say, hey, it's not such a big deal? I like some steak. Huh? Okay, you're right. It wouldn't always be the right thing. We're probably not going to be faced with that position where it's okay, you can eat vegetables, you can eat meat. But what's the difference? What will you be faced with? In the beginning, Daniel had to make a decision, right? So did Daniel stick to this decision or did Daniel compromise his beliefs? Huh? He stuck to it, right?